Hi there, traders. This is Brad Gilbert with the FX Market Insight for Monday, the 2nd of August. Right, now don't be alarmed. I've got some new blue screen glasses to try out. It looks like it's looking pretty good to me. Actually, it's just to change my view and the time I spend in front of the screens, make it a little bit less impacting on my eyes. But anyway, I'd probably recommend you get some if you're spending a bit of time in front of the screens. Now, let's just sort of get to it. Now, I've been away for like 4 weeks or a month, right? And just coming back, this is a bit of a preview sort of thing of what you should be looking at now. Now, I'm just, this page here, you need to sort of come back and find some relevance. Now, you can see the equity markets were lower Friday. US equity futures just opening up a little bit. Not much change in the majors at this point. Treasuries haven't got a lot of information. So you need to sort of start to wind it back to where, okay, what's going on? Now, the way I would generally do it is the easiest thing to do is come back and have a look at your analysis, right? So see what's been happening. Is there dollar strength? Is there euro strength, weakness, etc.? You're just trying to isolate what is happening. Now, you can see here the dollar, well, it's just been trading sideways and then it's taken a bit of a nosedive. Now, this is obviously quite apparent on a lot of the dollar pairs where it's sort of dropped down, and you see the other pairs sort of, well, sterling's had a really good run, and I'll put that down to the still that positive euphoria around the vaccination rates and all that sort of stuff in the UK. Aussie sideways, but not really going too far. Same with the Kiwi. Now, what I'm trying to look for is, okay, so I can get some uniform activity here on the dollar where it's sort of blipped down and these things have gone up. You can go and have a look and try and find out what's going on. Now, if you've got obviously Metastock, Reuters for that matter, then it's pretty easy to come back around and sort of get a bit of a summary of what's been happening across the board here in a lot of these pairs. Now, that's the way you got to sort of go about it. Now, just looking at this, dollar rises, but still set for biggest weekly loss since May, right? Now, I've just had a look at the what's going around here on the screens. And once again, it's the over exaggeration by the news services trying to create a story out of nothing. Now, looking at what the dollar's been doing, it hasn't really done a lot, right? Weekly loss since May, right? So they're just trying to sort of, give everything a little bit of pop when there's not a lot of pop in it. Now, a lot of the other pairs, as you can see, sterling connected to COVID, they seem to think that economic growth is going to go through the roof in the UK. I think that's we've got to wait and see how that goes, because who's to say there's not another variant that comes out that really spooks the UK. Good to see that they've opened the doors though. Canadian dollar and all the other pairs are sort of just filing in behind what's happening on the US dollar, right? Now, is the dollar going anywhere? I don't really think so just at the moment, right? So this is how my charts look, and I'm just trying to ascertain if there's any sort of significant trend, etc., or not. And there's not at this stage. The dollar has dipped a little bit. Now, the main catalyst, sorry, I meant to come back and tell you this, the Jerome Powell last week, if you had been watching the markets, came out and said they're a long way from raising interest rates, right? Bullard and a few other Fed officials are coming out with varying comments, right? You'd expect a little bit of varying opinions at the Fed level. Now, it looks like to me, I've just been having a look through the economic data and just going through that. There hasn't been a hell of a lot going on, but to me, when there's, and Friday's numbers here, right, out of the US, a little bit better than previously, okay? And that's, and with everything that's going on, a few uncertainties, equities come off, a little bit of a dollar, safe haven trade, they're sort of calling it, but it's pretty minute. Now, it looks like when the US numbers are coming out a little bit stronger, the Fed is very quick at the moment to put their hand on the head of the currency and say, look, not yet. We're not raising rates yet, so just don't focus on the data too much because we're still not doing anything. And that's keeping the dollar capped at this point. And if anything, when they do say that, it comes back and really has a negative impact on the dollar, right? So you can sort of see how the dollar's gone down here once again on Jerome Powell sort of coming out and saying that. Now, I would expect, we're coming into a new month, right? So draw a line in the sand. We've got non-farm payrolls coming up this Friday. That'll be the first catalyst, once again, to reset. Is the dollar going to move this month? Okay, it's one of the key numbers that we're going to be looking at. Obviously, inflation comes into it and a few other things, but that's what we need to wait for and see what happens. It's like the monthly reset. Okay, new data, first 2 weeks at least. You get plenty of high impacting numbers, and that's where the dollar will pick up, traction again. If the numbers are strong, it'll start edging higher again. If they're sideways, well, we'll just get sideways movements. If they're weak, well, then it goes down. We've got to try and keep an eye on the Fed and see how they react or make comments around the data as it starts to come out, right? So this is why you need to start planning ahead. And when we look at the numbers, right, you're trying to look forward, have a look through the this upcoming week of data and sort of put the pieces together. Now, RBA, first Tuesday of each month. It'll be interesting to see what they've got to say. They've been pretty muted up till now. You got some jobless unemployment figures out of New Zealand. Now, these numbers aren't coming out all the time, so it'd be quite interesting to see how they come out, especially with the Aussie and Kiwi having a bit of a downward bias at this point. We've got retail sales, so there's quite a bit of Aussie data coming out. And then we start to look at, as we go through the week, you got the Bank of England. It's going to be, once again, are the Bank of England going to say anything now? Looks like things are moving along in the UK. Might be time for them to say something. That's going to be worth having a close look at, especially if you're in the European session. And then you got the non-farm payrolls. As I said, once again, looking for, I didn't say that, but looking for bigger numbers. So the growth is happening in the in the US, but we have to sort of piece it together with the key inflation numbers and particularly with what the Fed is telling us to focus on. Now, it's one of those every second month, unfortunately, we get the US and Canadian employment numbers out at the same time. It's a bit of a kerfuffle, as you would know, because especially trying to trade dollar CAD with all the various numbers going all over the place. So it's one of those things you just have to be aware of. You're either choosing dollar CAD to trade or the dollar and all the other pairs. Now, that's going to be the focus as we go through the week. But up until now, what we're going to come back to is sort of micromanage what's happening right now. Okay. There's a few Chinese numbers. Are they coming into it? I haven't seen a lot. There's been a little bit of a run of stronger numbers out of the Eurozone, which is giving the Euro a bit of a boost, right? So keep an eye on Euro. Obviously, the US is going to be a key. We got Aussie, RBA, retail sales during the week. You can start to piece it together. US ISM manufacturing numbers. These are numbers, are building blocks for what's happening in the US economy. So, as I said, the start of a new month, we get a whole new batch of medium to high impacting numbers, and that's going to tell us where the dollar's going. So right now, what am I looking at? Well, I want to see the numbers tell me which way it's going. I've got the technicals set up here. But I need a bit more information. Now, coming back to those technicals, I'm just going to do another video this week. One of those things that I'm just changed over my charts here to the daily charts, as you can see, and just trying to get an overall image of medium to long term. What are these currencies doing? Now, if you're looking at the dollar index sideways, between sort of, just under 94 and 90 the figure. Dollar Swiss, well, it's sort of drifting, but getting closer to support around 90 the figure. Dollar Yen's had a pretty good run to the top side, and we've seen a little bit of a bounce here in dollar CAD. Is it really going anywhere? Well, short term, it's still going up until it breaks down through 124 the figure. You can see here a bunch of lows building up here. I guess 116 is the pivot point here for Euro. But once again, these things have been grinding in a big range as the Fed, and this is all about the dollar, really. The Fed gets to a point of potentially doing something or saying something, and then it reverses. And then, anyway, we're sort of caught in a bit of a conundrum. The sterling, well, I know it's bounced, but it really hasn't gone too far. Good clean out to the downside here to 136. Aussie looks like down. It looks heavy. And sort of so does the Kiwi to a point, although it's consolidated a bit more around 69, sort of 75. Now, there's one extra thing I've put in here to the charts, and it's probably one that I probably haven't spent a lot of time on in the past. It's a 200-day simple moving average, right? And what this really is, it's often called the bull and bear line, right? So where you would consider a currency is either bullish or bearish in overall sentiment. It's just one that I'm going to put in here for the short to medium term to see if it really does give us some sort of idea of what the bigger fund managers are looking at. Now, the idea is obviously if this is the purple line here, you'll see on these charts. Now, if it's above or below, that would tell you it's still bullish or bearish. Like the Aussie is coming up to this line. Anything below that, you would be considering the overall sentiment of that instrument to be bearish. I want to see if that matches up with the overall movement of the currency. Now, the Kiwi's coming up to it as well. So that's what I mean. These currencies are under pressure. You can see it on the chart just from the movement, but this sort of bull bear line may give us a bit more indication. Sterling, well above, so you'd say that's still bullish. So is Euro. Dollar index is right there. Dollar Swiss is below it. So you'd probably say bearish at this point. Bullish for dollar yen and dollar CAD. Well, still bearish overall. Anyway, I'll keep you informed as we go along over the next month or so. I want to see if there's any value in this. It's one of those extra instruments you can have, like a probability enhancer. I want to see if that assists us with the overall movement of the currency. Now, I'm very aware that these long-term, a lot of these currencies haven't done a lot, but what we're looking for is in identifying movements is trying to capture movements where the trend starts, right? And then you get that real bearish move. We'll have this from the trend lines themselves anyway, but this could be an extra boost to your confidence if you do see it break through like that 200-day simple moving average, right? It's one of those numbers that's there. I'm not trying to use it as an entry point. I'm trying to use it as a sentiment indicator. So just be aware of that. Outside of that, it's going to take me, I reckon, a day or so just to get, you lose your gut feel. When you're looking at the instruments and you're looking at all the various currencies and price movements, you can often get lost in what's going on. What I need to do is sort of have a look. I can see what the dollar's doing, right? There isn't a hell of a lot of movement from where it was last month. I know we've got the fresh data coming out, but I want to start to see if we can piece together what's going on now. Friday, equities lower, risk off. Well, we're seeing sort of, early doors for Monday, a little bit lower for the dollar block. Is the dollar pairs going up? Well, there's a couple of them are, but it's not a hell of a lot of movement. I'll be piecing together where the relative strength is for each of the currencies and see if we can really isolate, where direction's coming from, where to get in, what pairs to focus on, etc. Now, if I just do come back to that, I was just having a look here, looking at what's going on some of these major currency pairs. And if you're looking at the month to date, right? So really having a look here, like dollar Swiss down 2%, Aussie down 2%. These two pairs are big standouts, right? You look at the rest of the pairs, there's not a lot of movement there. So that's interesting to note where the major movement has been. So I'm just going to keep a close eye on what's going on here, why those pairs moving more than the others, and you can start building up a bit of a overall feeling of where everything is, or why they are moving lower as opposed to the others, right? Especially say you risk on, risk off pairs. You look at the Aussie, Kiwi, CAD, and there's one that's really sticking out like a sore thumb. Now, that may mean if we get some really strong Aussie numbers that we may see a bigger bounce in the Aussie, or it's already had all the good flavor in it and it looks like it's in trouble. So anyway, I'll piece that together. And just having a look around, the only other thing is to keep an eye on the various news articles, see if we can piece together if the news matches up with what's going on in the currencies. That's the easiest way. And to get the week started, really have a good look through this week's numbers, see what currency pairs the numbers match up with, and see if they are matching up with where we have clear movement in those currencies themselves. At the moment, it's I'm sort of just glancing across once again at the charts. you're looking for really solid activity. And what we've got is just those last movements from the last couple of days of last week. It's sort of pushed things around a bit where the dollar's now sort of in the middle of nowhere. Same with dollar Swiss, dollar yen's in the middle of the range. Dollar CAD, well, it's sort of still range bound overall, but it is trading a little bit lower. Euros had a little pop to the top side, as has sterling. Aussie's neutral, and I'd say pretty much so is the Kiwi. So anyway, we'll match up the data with the movements in the currencies and hopefully nail the particular pairs we need to be focusing on. All right, guys, good to be back, and we'll catch up during this week. Cheerio.